Welcome to 30 Days on the High Street. News and stories from Matthew's House as it seeks to deliver hope through hospitality to the heart of the city.
Hi, I'm Tom Lynch, the project manager of Matthew's House.
I'm Robin and I'm on the leadership team at Matthew's House.
And I'm Ellie and I'm the project coordinator at Matthew's House.
Hello and welcome to 30 Days on the High Street, our video blog at Matthew's House, to share news and stories and encouragements with you of the life and the work that we do here at Matthew's House. We do these things. This is our third update for you. We've got a little timer. Robin's got it there. We're going to start with that. The reason we do that is because we love this stuff. We love what we do at Matthew's House, and sometimes we can get lost and talk way longer than we should do. But we've been talking recently. We're currently going through a phase looking at the coronavirus response in our city, and we've had to adapt a lot of what we do. And when talking about that with Robin, there's a couple of things that he shared that was really, really helpful. Stuff for companies and charities and all things for Matthew's House. So we just wanted to share a little bit about that. That'll help us go into the next phase and what we've been going through already. So Robin, over to you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Tom. Well, whether you're an organisation or an individual experiencing a crisis, and whether the crisis is small, such as something minor in your life, like a spilt milk or a leaky tap or something like that that's flooding at your house, or whether it's far more serious, which is, of course, what we're experiencing at the moment with the pandemic. Whatever that sort of crisis is, a crisis typically has three stages, and I'll summarise them like this. There's the response stage, then there's the recovery stage, and then there's the reconstruction stage. And I guess the first thing I want to emphasize as I quickly unpack those and what characteristics they might contain, and I'm going to focus first really from a Matthew's House perspective on the response stage and the recovery stage. But whatever stage we find ourselves in the crisis, we are still in the crisis. And that really is important for us to understand, because one of the key things, and this is particularly relevant for us at Matthew's House with a large volunteer family where we all work together, we work hard together, we have a lot of interaction, we deal with some real challenges. During a crisis, some of the tensions, almost the temperature goes up, and as a consequence, things can boil over if we're not careful, and we can be a lot harder on our relationships with one another. And we just need to understand that actually we'll be in this crisis at Matthew's House for some time yet. So the first stage of any crisis is the response stage. This is like a sprint. It is like lockdown is about to happen. We need to get our act together. All our decisions are now and immediate. We're not thinking about next week. We're just thinking about now and everything like that. And I often have said as well, and I think we saw this in Matthew's House with our volunteers and the guys like you guys and others. It's not about your job description. It's about your character description in that moment. It's the now and immediate. What can I do? Not this is what I do. In other words, you just turn your hand to whatever is required in that moment to get some level of control. Because in that moment, what you're really trying to do is get control. You're trying to regain control. You're trying to retain control, or you're trying to assert a level of control on the situation you're dealing with. So for example, we were trying to work out, how do we get food out there? How do we deal with hungry people? How do we manage queues? How do we deal with the demands? What are we going to do about money? What are we going to do about the building? How are we going to keep people safe? It's all now, 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 now. And everything else goes out the window. Plans, future, it all just goes out the window. And if you think about even a minor crisis, the same is true. You just forget, if you spilt something across the floor of your house, everything else stops. All you're interested in doing is trying to minimize the damage and respond. And that is the response stage. That is where the adrenaline is pumping as well. And at that point as well, you also see elements of your character come out, and you see the character in an organization and the values of an organization also come out in that moment. You see whether you're an organization that's kind to one another, or selfless, or selfish, or whatever, but those stuff come out. Right. So then what happens is you've done the sprint stage, you've got the adrenaline pumping, which is what we've just gone through as an organization. And then you go into what is the recovery stage. But the recovery stage is only 2/3 of the way through, as it were. It's the second of 3 stages, and it's still in the crisis. And this stage is the one we're probably entering in. It's not quite a clear cut-off, so it is a bit of a blur. You're entering it now. And so what that means is we're going to enter it as we go into lockdown restrictions change, social distancing stays in, and we are having to work out, well, how do we sort of gradually recover from the response stage and build in new practices in light of the new developments. And the reason that's important, I think, is for this. One, we need to understand that this stage is one part of the crisis, and two, it's more of a marathon. Now, nobody that I've never run a marathon. I've run a half marathon, but I've never run a marathon. But even when I ran a half marathon, I didn't prepare for it by doing a massive sprint, pumping adrenaline around my body, and then going, right, let's now do another 13 miles. But that is what is happening. And therefore, as a consequence of that, for the organisation like Matthew's House, what we're going to experience now, and I would suggest we're going to experience all the way up into 2021, early 2021, is a sense of we're running a marathon now. So you've got to adjust your pace. You've got to be kind to one another. You've got to recognise a lot of your goals are still short-term or medium-term. You've got to continue to protect and make priorities. You've got to continue to make decisions which aren't so much immediate, but they are very short to medium term. And it's going to feel a lot more like a long, long run. And that will therefore, if you're not aware of that, you won't pace the race. You won't try and look after each other. You won't try and manage all the different pressures on people. And particularly there'll be pressures on people that are unique to them. So there will be some people who will go back to work and find other people have been laid off, so more pressure on them. Others will be laid off potentially, which is really sad, and they'll have a loss of sort of momentum, a loss of confidence, potentially a loss of purpose. You've got volunteers who won't be able to get involved still, maybe because they're so vulnerable. And we've got all those sort of implications, and that's going to be over a longer period, and that's going to present unique challenges to an organisation like Matthew's House. Never mind as well meeting the needs of all the guests and all of their challenges. And I suspect that that will continue for some time yet. And sadly, and I know it's not particularly encouraging in one sense, but I think that could continue way in early 2021. And then after that stage, at some point in 2021, I use that as an arbitrary date because who knows, we will go into the reconstruction stage and we will discover things that we thought we needed, we didn't need, and other things like Zoom, which suddenly became all important to us, will suddenly have a new higher value of those things and how can we use them. And so we'll learn a lot of lessons that we'll implement in the reconstruction stage. But I think we're entering this recovery stage, and I think it's a marathon. And I think if you think of it in terms of like that, that will help all our volunteers and our guests as we look to communicate with them about what they can expect from Matthew's House during this time. Yeah. Does that make sense? I think it does, but it's always good to seek some feedback on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Robin. It's brilliant. It's a season where we're talking a lot, sharing a lot, thinking a lot, trying to figure things out. Ellie's going to share just a little bit and introduce the next bit of this 30 days on the high street. So yeah, over to you, Ellie.
Yeah, so I think obviously what Robin's talking about is that we're moving into a recovery phase right now. But what's important to mention is that we could go back to that response phase at any time as well. So there's certain things that Matthew's House we can control, and there's a lot of things that we can't control. So like government restrictions being one of them. So it's about realising that we could go back into that sprint phase at any time, and we've kind of got to be prepared for that. So what we're doing at the moment then is preparing for the next stage, the recovery, and the things that we can control in that. But what we recognise is that you actually probably don't really know what the response phase, the first phase, looks like at Matthew's House. So before we share with you in the weeks and months to come what our next phase will logistically look like, we wanted to just share a little video with you about what our response phase looks like at the moment, how much work we put into that change building wise, and then to sort of reassure you that we will put that same time and thought into our recovery.
This is our lovely cafe area that is now the operation room to distribute the hot meal packs from Matthew's house. Now we're going into a lounge, a one-to-one room where we used to meet people, volunteers, encourage one another, which is now our stock room, somewhere that we're trying to build up our stocks to ensure what we do can continue for some time. Now this is our entrance that was so lovely and welcoming. Now these are all disinfected trays that one of our volunteers cleans every day. And our kitchen, newly taped, that used to have anything from 5, 6, 7 volunteers, can only house 3 volunteers now. This is a new Matthew's house, but a Matthew's house that's still giving hospitality and hope in the heart of Swansea. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. That was 30 days on the high street. Robin sharing with us a bit of wisdom. Hope you enjoyed what Matthew's house looks like at the moment. And it's been a pleasure to share some updates, news, stories with you, volunteers, supporters, and anyone looking into what we're doing at Matthew's house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to 30 Days on the High Street. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. Matthew's House is an initiative of the Hill Church and seeks to provide hope through the sheer power of hospitality to some of the most vulnerable, isolated and disenfranchised people in the heart of the city. To find out more or support our work, please visit www.matthewshouse.org.uk.